period of a journey into arbitrary parts. So
Yeah, that's what a clock does. Right?
yeah, exactly. So what I'm saying is beyond the arbitrariness of the clock that we use or any instrument that we use to measure time, is time a physical thing like a photon or the supposed graviton that they're still looking for?
So
The reason why I ask this, by the way, is I'm not trying to trap you here, because my definition of time is that time is abstract in nature, just as distance is abstract in nature.
I understand.
So for me, time would be the measurement of change or the measurement of motion, and the change would be one concrete thing relative to another.
yeah, so this comes into there are radically different theories of time. Some of them are like you described, where the arrow of time is the entropy-based arrow of time.
Yeah.
And the notion of a singular present, that's more compatible with what you're describing. But there are other ideas where the universe is a crystal or a shape in space and time. So this moment is
Yeah, they call it the block theory of time or the static
Yeah,
theory of time.
this moment is
But
one
is there any
plus
evidence for that? I see that it seems like it's purely mathematically based, if that, and it's purely a philosophical idea for which there is zero evidence. The idea, for instance, that the past, present, and future, they persist equally, and that it's just an illusion that we travel from one point in the present to the next.
I'm not a physicist, but there are some things I know that make me more inclined to believe. Though I don't know if you could ever prove or disprove it either way. I'm not.
No, but surely as a
I don't have
scientist,
enough
we're looking.
knowledge to
Sure.
imagine an experiment that would do
No,
that.
that's fine. But given that you have claimed that time and space is what you've placed your, would the word belief be correct? Given that you've just acknowledged that you're not a physicist, neither am I, and so therefore we go by the evidences of the quote-unquote experts in the field. So, would you say that your belief is that space and time is what you actually adhere to, and so therefore, have the physicists brought forth any type of evidence to show that time isn't just restricted to the present, it actually is something that is an illusion such that the past, present and future, they exist equally. They've always existed. Is there any evidence for this?
So the few things that I know have to do with time dilation. So a simple example is you and I each have a clock. We leave Earth, like I described before, and we then arrive with different amounts of time on our clocks.
Yep.
But if the difference is sufficiently large,
Yep.
you can have a scenario where, go about it this way. So once the person arrives back, if you imagine going back in time from each of their perspectives, sorry, I need one moment to spin
Don't
out
worry. You take your time. I know it's cold as well, and my brain barely works when it's cold.
So yeah, so basically, two people leave the same point.
Yep.
One arrives back at a certain time,
Yep.
which is time X.
Yep.
And at that point, my clock is time X minus 1. So you've spent more time
Yeah.
than I have.
Yeah.
So I got it backwards.
Yeah. No. I understand what you're saying. Look, what you're essentially saying. I mean, I'm familiar with what you're saying. I'm not an expert myself. But what you're essentially saying is that the speed at which a person travels or the gravitational pull that is exerted on a person determines the rate at which they move or the motion of their existence. So I would say to you that yes, the rate at which you travel or the gravitational pull that's exerted on you will have an effect in relation to your inertial time frame relative to someone else's. But that doesn't prove that the past still exists and the future. Yeah.
It doesn't prove it. But to me, it makes it more believable. And
What makes more believable?
The fact that you can travel between two moments in different amounts of time.
No, but
But
I think you're missing the point here. No matter, look, I could be. You've seen Interstellar, the movie Interstellar, where they have that huge giant black hole that they call the Gargantuan, right? And then I think it's 1 hour beyond the event horizon of this Gargantuan black hole equals something like 20 years or 12 years, right?
Yeah.
But whether the person who's close to the black hole or the person outside of the event horizon of the black hole, no matter what time is being measured, they're still restricted to the present, such that hypothetically, if they were able to communicate with each other, the communication would be in real time relative to each person's present. So just very quickly, just 10 seconds more, right? So my point here is that a person traveling fast or slow doesn't change the reality that they share universally with someone else anywhere in the universe.
So I remember the example. You have an astronaut who leaves and spends a certain amount of time. And when they arrive back, it's been more time for us. So now if I were to imagine going back in time on Earth for the amount of time that they experienced, I would end up at a moment before they left. But if I went back in time on their trajectory, on their voyage, I would end up at the moment that they left. So the fact that by traveling different amounts of time, we end up at so in that case, the same amount of time takes us to different points in time. And in reverse, different amounts of time lead us to the same moment in time.
I noticed that you used the word fact. The fact is, you said, but surely you mean hypothetically, because time travel hasn't been invented. There's no way of actually testing this hypothesis.
So this is accepted as shown with the International Space Station.
No.
Yeah.
The hypothetical that you gave. Yeah. That's what I mean. Yeah, because you gave that example, then you said, the fact is, and that threw me. I'm thinking, surely he means hypothetically.
I mean, it's the fact and the hypothetical.
Okay.
But yeah, so.
I got you.
Do you see the idea?
Yeah, I do, but I still
traveling
think
between two moments can take two different amounts of time.
Yeah.
Then it's more plausible the three-dimensional cubic model of time.
Yeah. You see, for me, there isn't any sufficient evidence. I don't think there's any evidence at all that the past, present, and future exist equally.
Yeah, I'm not the person to ask.
No, that's fine. But look, we can go by what we know as non-physicists, normal individuals going through life, doing our best to accumulate knowledge, right? We know intuitively that which is a fact and doesn't require any type of evidence is the present moment. We all share it. Whether we put a person on a spaceship traveling close to the speed of light, the present moment is what will always define the experiences of an individual, right?
Sure.
The person on a spaceship traveling at the speed of light, there may be immense time dilation for that individual, but ultimately, when that ship comes to a halt, that person will still be sharing the same present moment as anyone else, right? So the present.
So one of the issues for me is in the space station example, there's potential for disagreement about the point in time that is the present. So if I am on Earth and the present is noon, right? Then my clock will say noon. But if we say the spaceman has experienced the same amount of time as me, there's this mismatch.
No, there's
his percentage of completion of his journey.
No, the clock wouldn't agree. The clock, like you said, would very much disagree. But you're missing the point that the important phrase that you're looking for is the inertial frame reference.
Yeah.
So a person standing here on Earth at noon has his own frame of reference that is separate and distinct now from the person who's been placed on that rocket and traveling at a particular speed, right? So you can't compare. It's like comparing apples and oranges. There's no comparison to be had because that person has his own now frame of reference, which is traveling at, which is being determined by the speed at which they are traveling. Ours is determined by our own frame. So you can't compare the two and say, well, that's an evidence that this is somehow.
So the paradox for me is if I decide that the present is noon, and I ask, well, what about the spaceman? What about the guy on the ISS? What does he look like in this moment? So I go, maybe I use the telescope and I look up and I see his clock.
Yeah.
What is his clock?
Yeah, which is about what, 20 minutes, 50 minutes, let's say any amount of time minus my time, right? Now, if I use that binocular or I get in contact with that individual, time is traveling slower for that person, but not for me, but it's purely a point of abstract measurement. I've asked him, what speed is your clock measuring time at? He says, well, it's 10 past 12. And you say, well, that's weird. My one's already hit 1 o'clock. but that doesn't prove the point that somehow two realities are different. In the present moment, look, the point here is that
you decide what the present moment is for each party.
by the very fact that you're communicating with him in the real time in your present, and he's communicating with you in his present. Do you see the point?
So you account for latency then?
You would count for any type of latency you want to, but the latency isn't something that is real. It's the clock measurement of the matter that surrounds him.
Right, but if we are communicating with him, there's a delay because the communications have to travel.
Sure.
Right. So then.
And you would take that into account, but that doesn't mean that you're 20 minutes in the past. You are in the present moment when that communication comes to you, and you have to account for that.
So you're saying that the communications delay is the only difference between the two moments.
Exactly.
Right.
And that doesn't mean now that he exists 20 minutes in the future and you have to wait for him to catch up with you. Imagine, let's just say hypothetically.
I understand that in this case.
Okay, but I think I might be able to solve the problem here. Imagine we have a, what do you call them? That Star Trek beam me up thing, what's it called? That pod that they have, right?
I don't know Star Trek.
Oh, you don't know Star Trek. So Star Trek has it that people can literally be atomized and then transported from one pod to another place that's, I don't know, so many thousands of miles away in an instant. So imagine you were able to do this with that individual, hypothetically. Immediately he appears in front of you. He's not going to be, you're not going to have to wait for him half an hour, because now he's in your frame of reference. You're now sharing the same inertial frame of reference. So the present is what determines, relatively speaking, how a person exists in relation to another person. So yes, his frame of reference, because he was traveling faster, is different to yours until the moment he immediately appears before you. So therefore,
I think it's my understanding that there might be causal paradoxes if you were able to do that kind of teleportation.
In what way? How would that be a paradox when he has appeared in front of you?
Faster than light travel, causal paradoxes.
Yeah, look.
I mean,
faster than, it's a purely hypothetical. My point wasn't that that's possible. My point was that if that person immediately appears before you, hypothetically, I don't believe it's possible in that scenario, but let's just say it was. My point wasn't that faster than light travel is possible. My point was that you would end up sharing the same frame of reference.
Right, but my point is that would require a different notion of time. You see what I'm saying? So that's not compatible with my idea.
And what notion of time would that be? Other than the abstract reality of time, which we measure by using an instrument like an atomic clock or a clock or the sun traveling across the planet, where we arbitrarily split time up in 2 moments. So time doesn't actually exist as a thing that you can bottle up and measure. That's my point. And one way we can.
I still don't understand what you mean.
Okay.
By bottle up and measure.
So when you speak about space-time, you affirm that you believe that time isn't an abstract idea that we use to make sense of the world vis-a-vis one person's moment in relation to another person's moment. You're saying that space and time are actual things that you can measure up. So for instance, you're standing such and such distance away, right? Now when I say to you that that's 60 centimeters from me, those centimeters are arbitrarily drawn up by me or anyone else to make sense. It just
agree upon a unit of measure.
Yeah. Okay.
And a system.
Yeah. Right. So
in that way, the measurement describes a real property.
Exactly.
We've required it to have a certain relationship with reality.
Yeah. So
it contains information about reality.
Right. So in order to get around these philosophical, I would say almost conjectural notions of space-time, for which since Einstein's time we have absolutely zero evidence that space and time are an actual thing that can be manipulated.
I don't think so.
Okay, look.
I think there's a few mistakes there. First, in science you look for evidence to disprove something, and over time, as you acquire experiments that have failed to disprove it, that makes a stronger case that it is true.
Yeah, but
makes you more inclined to believe it's true.
But you know what? Einstein never believed that. He actually did believe that time and space do exist. In fact, there's a famous story of him going to one of his friend's funerals and telling his wife that, don't worry, your husband hasn't died, he's very much alive, because he actually did believe that the present, past and future, they exist equally. They actually exist as an eternal block.
Yeah, so to me that's...
So just very quickly, okay, to cut to the point, cut to the chase, get to the point, my argument here is that we can move beyond these conjectures, these philosophical notions, these hypotheses, by recognizing that what we cannot dispute is the present moment in time. So if we recognize that the present exists for you and me, and it's obvious that it exists, my next question to you would be, sir, the immediate past that brought the present about, could the present have come about without past causes? The causes that brought the present moment, could the present have come about without these past causes?
I mean, it's conceivable. It's not a question I've thought about.
I mean, think about what I'm trying
to me, like, I somewhat think of it in terms of Wittgenstein's idea that the world is a set of things that are true. So you're asking, could there be truth now that is not caused by previous truth? And to me, the obvious answer is yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Right. You mean no, right? That the past truths brought about the present truth, or the past causes brought about the present world.
It's conceivable that there's just continuous truth.
Yeah. Okay.
Across time.
Okay. So we have time. We know that time is essentially the relative measurement where we distinguish one point from another, right? So the past, we know whatever our past was 20 minutes ago during this conversation has gone. We know from our personal experiences as a human being that they will not return. So we're certain of that. Relative to the experiences that we have,
we
right?
will not return.
Yeah. So the past is gone, but we know that the present could only have come about through the past. And the past had causes and effects that brought about the present moment,
Yeah,
right?
we believe that we got to the present.
Yes. So when maybe you didn't understand my question, but that was precisely what I was trying to put across to you, that the obviousness of the past, made up of causes that bring about the present, is something that all of us would agree to. Now,
yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's any baggage in the specific terms you're using, but what I would say is, I got to this moment by living through the past.
yeah, exactly. I'll work with that. I mean, I don't think anyone would dispute that unless they're an extreme positivist or realist, right?
You can dispute it as a fun experiment.
Yeah, of course you can. But, when we talk about the fundamental things in life, is there a creator for all things, or has the universe always existed? Then we need to ponder these questions very deeply, because they will have a profound effect on how we live life and our morality.
I don't think that's an or question. I think that there are just many possibilities.
Okay.
And I think,
let's go through them, if you don't mind.
The question of if there is a creator, exact nature of it.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
I think that we human beings, we all share we share the same faculties of reasoning. Some people are sharper than others in being able to reach certain conclusions, etc. But ultimately, we're all bound by the intellects that we have and the rationale that we have. We ask the same questions based upon the same experiences that all of us share within the world. Like I said, some of us, we process certain things quicker than others. But ultimately, we're confined by the sum of our experiences in life, which are our rational, our rational faculties, right? Would you agree to that?
Our reasonable faculties.
Okay, reasonable.
We can be reasoned with, we're not always using these.
So look, if the universe were eternal, i.e. it doesn't have a beginning, then there would be an infinite number of these causes that go back into the past without any beginning, right? Now, given that the present moment couldn't have come about except by the immediate past, and that immediate past, which we might call n-1 or p-1, couldn't have come about except by the past that preceded it, which we might call p-2. If we extend this right the way back to an infinite past with no beginning, could the processes of the past affecting the p-n, p-2, p-1, p, could we have reached p if there was an infinite number of causes going back into the past?
Well, that depends on where we started.
Well, we started here, right?
Yeah, so if we...
In terms of our experiment.
I as an individual started living...
But there is
years
no...
ago,
Yeah, but there is no start, right? For the beginning of this infinite universe.
Yeah, there is no start, but we have a start. We have a beginning.
No, but we did... Yeah, but sure, but we're talking about the present moment here, in the here and now, right?
Yeah, so your point, I guess, is that infinite progression of time without a beginning is incompatible with only the present existing. I don't even know if I believe that.
Okay, so what is the third alternative? The third alternative is essentially either the universe, either I don't care and I don't want to know, which, by the way, you mentioned Wittgenstein. Wittgenstein essentially put it that, is this an I don't know something about which nothing can be said? Or is this an I don't know about something reasonable can be said? But we can infer reasonable things, right? That's why I hearken to you, the understanding that we human beings have been given the faculties of reasoning, and we can't go beyond that. So if the universe is eternal, we have an eternal number of causes. That means we would never have been able to reach the present. Or if you want to put it, in your words, an eternal number of truths.
The tricky thing is, if the universe goes back infinitely, there is no beginning point.
Exactly.
And that does pose problems for the idea of only the present exists. There are questions of, which moment in time is the present?
Precisely.
And what does it mean for the present to go back forever for time to go back forever if the present was never at some of those points? It is only ever at these points. I see your point.
Yeah.
So I think that's a valid point about the range of possible theories,
So
but I think there are many other possible interpretations.
Okay, but usually what we try and do, we go through, we preponderate. What we do, we take the strongest evidences and we work with those. We do that all the time in life. When we're making decisions in life, we go by. We don't have all the answers. We're not all knowledgeable, such that we have all the possible variations before us, and then we say, yep, path C out of 20 paths is the one I'm going to take, right? We try and measure all the variables, and we make the most reasonable conclusion in regards to those in relation to what we choose. So likewise, there may be different theories, but when we look at the evidences before us, we use our human rationale and our faculties of reasoning, we can come to the conclusion that, if there was an infinite universe, the present wouldn't arrive. Therefore, an actual infinite in the real world cannot exist. So there are philosophers, for instance, just very quickly, there are philosophers who say that you can do beautiful mathematics regarding the infinite. David Hilbert did it, Cantor did it, but they did it on paper, only in the mind. If you try and transpose, if you try and take that infinite and claim that there is an actual infinite existing in the real world, then you come across these paradoxes.
So I think the point is, obviously, within infinity, if you're taking single steps, there's no end to reach. You can keep going along that direction.
Precisely.
Forever.
Hence the linear nature of time.
So if you could keep going backwards in time forever,
which you wouldn't be able to do.
Then if there was only one moment in time, right, that has been traveling for an infinite, that has been traveling.
The penny's dropped.
It's not coherent there.
No, it's not.
Right?
Yeah.
So
therefore, we have
it's
two options.
Incompatible with a single moment in time existing.
Exactly. So the universe has a beginning. The question now is, the universe, did it bring itself about, or was there something outside of the universe that brought it about? If the universe has a beginning, and that's...
Yeah, in this specific thing, if you say there's only one moment in time that exists, then you can say there cannot be, you could not have traveled an infinite distance. Right. You can only have traveled a finite distance.
Right, so therefore the universe, because we only traveled a finite distance, therefore the universe has a beginning.
Yeah, if you have a single present. If you have multiple moments in time that are traveling through time, you can have infinite flow of time.
No, you can't.
Yeah, you can, because, for example,
how can
you might be able to go back in time infinitely, or just keep going back in time and never reach a beginning. But I was born at a particular point in time, and I've lived since that point in time, and that's a finite life.
Yes.
Right? So that's a finite journey through time. All journeys through time must be finite.
Yes.
But there could be multiple concurrent journeys throughout boundless time.
That doesn't make sense.
Not concurrent in time, but concurrent in visualization.
Yeah, so look. those multiple journeys ultimately still will end up suffering the problems and the questions that we spoke about an infinite universe, because either those multiple journeys have a beginning or they don't.
Well, I'm saying that like my life has a beginning.
Yeah.
My life has an end.
Yeah.
But that can still exist with like on a number line, right? You can say these are all the numbers. Let's pretend they're years, and we say, okay, this is the year I was born, and now this is the year I died.
No, but
that's a finite distance.
But I'm talking about not you and me and any finite thing. I'm talking about the sum total of all things that exists. The universe, like we said in the beginning, the Earth that contains you and I and everything else, the sum total of matter, does that have a beginning or not? If it does, then you can't wriggle your way out of this by claiming that, oh, there are multiple journeys and they could go back, in some infinite fashion to the...
So I see this idea, right, saying that, let's say there's an object we say has been around forever. That would require an infinite journey, right? That would mean that this object has been there throughout time. No, my instinct is, while I agree with you on the single present example and saying, well, you can't travel, you can't say there's an infinite distance between us and a point we've reached by traveling finite steps one at a time, right?
And so what's the opposite of infinite other than finite? And what's the synonym for finite other than absolute beginning?
Yeah, if you talk about journey, you say there's substance in the universe that has, like, basically, you cannot allege that this object has traveled through an infinite amount of time by taking finite steps.
So we've already gone over this a number of times. If we can't do that, then the universe, which is the sum total of all matter, has a beginning. Now the question then...
No, it has a beginning, but it's contextual. There are still other possibilities.
What other possibilities are there?
You could have a shortcut through time, non-finite steps, an infinite step through
even
time.
if I grant you that, there's still a beginning to that universe. How does that shortcut negate the universe not having an absolute beginning? Because you said, look, there's a third possibility, and then you immediately jump to, there's a way of making a shortcut. I can grant you the shortcut, i.e. someone right at the beginning had some time machine and they were able to bypass all of time and reach the present moment, but that doesn't negate the fact that the universe has a beginning. So what's the third option?
So I think, let me work through the example, because I think there is a contradiction. What I'm agreeing to is that if you take finite steps, so basically adding 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you'll never pass infinity, right? Infinity is not on the number line.
Agreed.
There's no number of steps where you'll have traveled an infinite.
Yeah, it's called the traversal of the infinite. Yeah.
So, but there are other ways of traveling where...
And does that other ways of traveling negate the fact that if an infinite doesn't exist, there is only something that is finite, and therefore a finite thing by its very definition has to have a beginning. So if it has a beginning, either the beginning point came about from nothing, or the beginning point was a cause in and of itself.
Well, so a beginning point to time is a point in time where you can go back no further, right? But what that initial state looked like, it could have just been a snapshot in time. Right.
And what would that snapshot be? Look,
it could be any state.
Use your rationale and say to yourself, are you scared of saying nothing? Why don't you just say that, look, my rationale has it that either nothing before the universe existed, and then we have to figure out what that nothingness even means, or there was something that brought the universe about, or the universe itself brought itself about. Those are the
universe just has a beginning.
Yes.
Like a moment that it's first.
Right. So when the universe brought itself about, could it have brought itself about? Was it dormant in some type of singularity, and then suddenly it decides, I'm going to bring myself apart?
I don't know what you mean by bring itself about.
Because remember, the universe is a beginning, right? It's finite. It's not eternal.
Yeah, I'm willing to work within the idea of a finite.
Right.
I do still think there are ways to make it work without finite, but I do think you're right that the finite notion is a simple way of looking at it.
Okay.
And that makes it, Occam's razor, a reasonable one to
Yeah,
say.
yeah. So if the universe does have a beginning, The scarier question is, if something outside of the universe brought the universe about, what was that something? Or the universe brought itself about, which the paradoxes in regards to that are going to be taxing.
I don't understand what that would mean.
Exactly, nor do I. So I agree with you there. Or if there was nothing outside of the universe that brought something about, that means what we're saying is that there was a point where there was nothing, and nothing brought something about.
So
do you think nothing can bring something about?
The narrative that makes the most sense to me is if you say there was a beginning to time, and that means if you go back in time, you eventually reach a moment where you can't go back any further.
Exactly.
But there's no reason established to believe that that moment was emptiness or anything other than just a day like any other.
Well, then it goes back to the point that you already conceded, which was that therefore, if there was no emptiness or nothingness, it must have been infinite. You can call it an infinite singularity.
No. It's like, imagine if 10 seconds ago was the first moment in time, and we're just imagining all the things that happened before.
No, but there is no imagination before time, right? It's that's when time began. So
no, you can have a sense of false memory, for example. It's just a hypothetical. But the point is that time could have arbitrarily started 10 seconds ago, and we can't be absolutely certain that's not the case. And it could have started with all this here, and we wouldn't really know.
But look, I think it's very obvious that if the universe had a beginning, time had a beginning, because time doesn't exist without matter. Space-time, remember? They're intertwined according to you. They can't be separated. That's why they call it space-time. My understanding is far simpler than yours. My understanding is that time is an abstract quantity, i.e. it's only in the mind, and we use that to determine one point from another. So just very quickly.
We can talk about seconds.
So just very quickly, before we talk about seconds, I think it's very important that we try and get around the idea that somehow there is an imaginary minus 10 seconds before anything existed.
That's not what I'm saying.
Okay, so what are you saying? Did something exist before the universe?
For all we know, the first moment in time could have been 10 seconds ago.
No, but that would mean...
It would have been, the world would have started the way the world was 10 seconds
ago. So let's go with that. So 10 seconds before, space-time existed before space-time of this world existed. Space-time, because remember, minus 10 seconds before...
Not what I'm saying. I'm saying that if 10 seconds ago was the first moment in time.
Imagine this is the boundary of our beginning of our universe. And this point, my finger is 10 seconds, minus 10 seconds. Right?
Yeah, but that's not what I'm talking about.
What are you talking about?
I'm saying that if this is the present, and this is the boundary, that this boundary is 10 seconds ago.
The present...
That's the hypothetical.
The present of what?
That the moment we are in right now.
No, but how does our present relate to the beginning of the universe that we existed?
I'm saying that hypothetically, that moment could have been 10 seconds ago, and we wouldn't be able to absolutely know that's not the case.
But I already granted.
That's all I'm saying.
I granted you that already, and I thought we moved past that. Even if it took 10 seconds.
Right, we were talking about the initial condition of the universe.
No, we're talking about what brought the universe into existence, not the initial conditions.
To me, that's a bit confusing, because...
Why is that confusing? Are you scared in saying...
caused the universe?
Yes.
And that something caused the beginning of time?
Of course.
To me, causality is inherently bound to time. Causality cannot happen outside of time.
Okay, so therefore, what brought the universe into existence? If causality is bound to time, and time is bound to matter... Just very quickly, and bound to matter, what was it that brought the universe into existence? It must have been something outside the universe, because you're saying that causality is bound to time. Now, if the universe, just very quickly,
not the beginning of the universe.
just the beginning of the universe, the beginning of time is the beginning of the universe, because according to you, space-time are intertwined. So now you believe that they're not intertwined?
So
that time can exist outside of matter?
No, that's not what I'm saying. It's the idea that the beginning, when you say beginning of time, that would be, if you were to construct a timeline, there's no way to put a moment before that.
Yes.
So if you talk about something causing the beginning of time,
yes,
to me that's very confusing.
Okay.
Causality can only happen across time.
Right, okay.
So before time, there was no causality.
Okay, so what brought the universe about? If you are not...
That's why I'm not, the idea of the universe having a beginning is...
Okay, so if we say that the universe did have a beginning, the only other option is that there must have been some cause outside of the universe that accounts for the universe coming into effect.
Again, when we're talking about time, some kind of cause before time?
Yes, because how did the universe come about? If you deny the cause, the universe was brought about by nothingness. Why? Because look, the absence of a cause is nothingness. If you say that there is no cause, there's nothingness. What other third option is there? Give me the third option, please, because I'm confused now. There's no cause. Something brought the universe about. What's the third option if it's not nothingness?
To me, this is what's tricky about the idea of the beginning of time, because then you can say, there was some condition that was there, but it wasn't before the start of the universe. That condition was the start of the universe.
Okay, so let's go with that. So
but then
something
it didn't cause the universe.
So
it's
something
just the initial state of the universe.
Sure.
The question isn't what created the universe. The question is what was the initial state of the universe.
No.
To me, that's the only question that makes sense in this context with this cosmology.
Okay, so if the universe has a cause within itself, either the universe is infinite, or it has a beginning, and then you have to ask yourself, how did the universe decide to bring itself about?
But see, again, that feels like projecting time into the beginning of, like saying a cause for the beginning of time.
Yeah, but the beginning
that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, but sir, the beginning of time, the beginning of the universe is the beginning of time. So you can't just turn your brain off and say that the beginning of the universe, there was no time.
I would like to focus on the beginning of time, because to me that is the more...
Which is the beginning of the universe.
Yeah, we can say that.
Yes, of course, we have to say that. Otherwise, you're denying...
There are different notions of the universe. Some people say the universe was not, like there's notions of multiple universes, etc.
Multiple universes still go back to the question of whether an infinite universe can exist.
There's the beginning of time, right? So the question, I don't want to think about universes, I want to think about time. I want to think about the beginning of time.
Right. So let's talk about the beginning of time.
The beginning of time, I think about the first condition. What was the first moment like? Because I don't, if you try to go, like you can't go before that.
No, you can't.
Right? So the question to me is, what was the first moment
okay.
like? And
so
to me,
can I ask you a question? When the universe came about, was there a point when the universe was not there? And think about very carefully your answer, because if you say yes, I'm going to ask you, therefore, it has to be infinite. If you say no, the only question that I'm going to ask you is, therefore, there was nothing.
So, this is a scenario a bit outside of how I tend to think about the origin of this world and the universe and time. But what I am inclined to believe is the easiest first moment to get from there to here is a moment that is more or less like any other moment in time. Maybe it has some special properties, but on the whole, it's not that different from the present. It would still be matter, etc.
No, I think you're just completely bypassing the most important question of all. You just completely ignored the universe's beginning and the two possibilities for whether the universe existed or not, and you're just taking the universe's beginning as a given, and then saying that the universe's beginning progressed from that point up. But
yeah,
what's that got to do with it? What's that got to do with anything?
I don't understand how to assess the causality of what caused the first moment in time.
Because
to me,
that's
causality happens over time.
No, but
so the first moment in time inherently does not have a cause.
Right. So therefore, what brought the universe about? If the universe's very beginning point is the beginning of time, what brought the universe about?
Again,
either it was
there was nothing brought it
either
about.
Exactly. Thank you.
It's not
Finally
coherent to say something brought it
precisely.
about.
So now, ask yourself the question: nothingness is the absence of all things. Power, energy.
No. That's not what's meant by nothing.
Don't say nothingness.
That's not what I mean.
Don't say what people like
What I mean is there was not anything that brought it about.
And what define for me what not anything is?
What I mean is it was not brought about. That's what I mean when I say nothing brought it about. I mean it was not brought about.
So you use the word nothingness. What is nothing? What is the word nothing in your imagination?
As I said, it means it was not brought about. So there's nothing you could say. You couldn't point to anything and say this is what brought the universe about. That's what I mean when I say nothing brought it about. I'm not saying that. Oh, it was nothingness that brought it about.
Okay,
that
good.
actually contradicts.
Okay, good.
Saying.
So therefore, there was something that brought about the universe.
No, I'm saying that it was not brought about. That's what I'm saying.
My friend.
To say
my friend.
I don't
You
understand.
claiming that it was not brought about by something does not negate the fact that something did bring it about.
My claim has been consistently that I don't understand the idea of a cause to the beginning of time. Again, I'm talking about time, not the universe.
Okay. What third option is there? What? The only option thereafter is I don't want to know. Turn my brain off and walk away.
To me, I don't see how you could know. I see the question of what was the first moment.
I'll tell you how we do know. I'll tell you how we know. Because, like we mentioned it right at the beginning of our conversation, we go by that which we know, not by that which we don't know. What we know is that the sum total of all our experiences, the sum total of how scientists do their work in the real world is causes bringing about effects. That means if we grant that the universe came to the present moment in time through these causes and effects, and these causes came to a halt at the beginning of the universe, the only answer we can have for what brought the universe about is the sum total of what we have, which is a cause.
No, because that contradicts the idea of causality.
What's the third?
An idea of a cause.
Then if it contradicts
as I said, it was not brought about.
Okay, so if it contradicts the notion of causality, either nothing brought it about,
or it was not brought about.
What do you mean by it was not brought about? The universe exists. The universe exists, doesn't it?
Yeah, it just has a beginning.
And do we not recognize that the law of causality is real? So when you say it was not brought about, that's like you saying I don't exist, but you do.
No.
You exist by the very fact that you're talking.
Causality operates over time. Causality is one moment in time affecting the next.
Okay.
If you go to the first moment in time, there's no moment in time before it to cause things in it.
And so if there is a cause, there would be time before that time, wouldn't there?
Sure.
Okay. So therefore, now that we've come to the point where there is a time before this time, the time of this world, we can now ask the question: if this universe had a beginning. And
again,
just one,
my
friend, very quickly, because we're almost there, I think. We're almost home. If the universe has a beginning, right? The universe has a beginning, time has a beginning, and these are brought about through causes. If the question of the universe not being infinite is true, the cause that brought the universe into existence cannot be infinite. Does that make sense?
So it doesn't line up with what I have been saying.
No, but you and I, we just agreed that the cause that brought the universe about brought it about in time. So there was a time before this universe, right?
If the universe has a cause, that cause must have happened in a moment in time.
Yes.
Like there must have been
Exactly.
The universe.
Now,
sure.
Here's the next question. Did that cause have a beginning? If it did, then the same questions that we asked of the universe, we're now going to have to ask of the cause that brought the universe about.
Sure, you can iterate back in terms of causality or just the flow of time.
Precisely.
Say what was the moment before.
And you remember when we spoke about an actual infinite existing in the real world? If we negated that, we have to negate the idea that there are infinite number of causes now that brought the universe about. So we go back.
To me, this is
we go back.
Point.
We go back to exactly the same point we began at, that there cannot be an actual infinite in the real world, because remember, we're negating causes. Now there is a way out of here, and it is two. Like I mentioned, either I don't know, I don't care, turn my brain off, walk away, or the other one is that the cause that brought the universe about is eternal and self-consistent.
So again, causality can only happen within time.
Yep, I've gone to that already.
The beginning of time.
Yep, I've gone to that already.
The beginning of time does not have a cause. It cannot have a cause.
Yeah, so I've gone to that already by explaining to you that the cause that brought the universe about is eternal. That can be within time.
Yes, something could exist outside of time, but it
No,
cannot have caused time.
No, you're missing the point. If the cause that brought the universe about, like you and I agreed, is in time, the only way out of the infinite regress problem is to say that the cause that brought the universe about is eternal, and it's in time.
I think I see what you're trying to make, which is, are you saying that time must have an infinite regress, or not?
Yes, you can say that.
So if you assert time must have an infinite regress because of the start of first moment in time problem we just discussed, then you're saying that if the universe has a cause, that cause
has to be eternal, and it has to be self-consistent.
Have traveled. Well, if there's no beginning, then you run into, I think, the paradox of the singular present.
No, I'll tell you what. This being has to be something that the universe and all its causes cannot be. The universe and all its causes are internally based. They depend upon each other. The universe, the present moment requires the past. That is what causes the infinite regress. The only way out of that infinite regress is by positing an idea, which is that the thing that brought the universe into existence, it has to be eternal, it has to be self-consistent, not dependent upon anything.
Okay.
That's the only way out.
Are you saying there is a moment in time in which the universe began?
Yes.
So to me, a lot of the baggage comes with that assertion itself.
Okay, but remember, for me, it's the present moment that exists, not the past. So when we bring into the understanding only the present exists, the present only exists.
You assert that?
Yes. So the present is brought about by the past. When this world was brought about, it was brought about by this eternal cause that did so in the present moment. Not in the past, not in the future, because the past and the future do not exist. So the paradigm has to now take into effect the following. The cause has to be in time, it has to be eternal, and it has to create in the present moment.
Yeah, so you're saying that rather than the first present being the first moment in time, that the first present was rather an arbitrary moment in time?
The first present has always been that one, the only present moment is what really matters. You can put it like that.
Right, but if we say what was the first present and where was that relative to the beginning of time?
Yeah, there is no first present because the first present is now.
So there's no previous presence,
no,
you're saying?
Obviously. Whatever present moment is occurring at this moment in time is the present.
So
anything before that
the universe is created in the present moment?
It was. When the universe, let's just say t equals 0 of the universe would have been the present moment. T equals 1 would have been that present moment. So the present moment is what we know. That's why
I'm asking you about if you are using a model.
Yeah, but remember my model.
Has no beginning.
Remember my model was based upon the present moment, causes and effects, and that's the only way we can know the world.
To be clear, are we talking about a scenario where time has no beginning?
Time isn't something that, I don't believe time is interwoven into the fabric of space. It's not a real thing. Time is merely a measurement.
Then do you think you would assert there is a first present then?
No. Oh,
so
sorry.
Not a first present.
You mean for the universe? Or in general?
I'm trying to understand your idea of present.
The present moment is now.
And there have been other presents in the past.
There have been a countless number of present moments.
So is that a finite count?
Nope.
Okay, so countless presents.
Yep.
You can keep paging through the past presents indefinitely.
Brought about by which thing? What was it brought about by?
Well, causality with an infinite stream is...
No, not causality in this world. We're talking about causality of a thing that has to be eternal and self-consistent. Otherwise, the same problems that bedevil the universe coming about, we have to ask of that cause. If that cause if that cause was dependent upon previous causes, yes, then your paradox would come into effect. But then we wouldn't have an answer to how the universe came about.
So,
other than, by the way, turning your brain off, walking away.
Causality requires time. Causality happens in time. The idea of an eternal cause could only, to me, be taken as something that is persistently true and causes something in every moment. And it's not a cause that is prior, it's a cause that is contemporaneous.
Yes.
But even then, that isn't really a cause to me. That's a condition that drives something.
Yeah,
It's not a cause.
You can call it a condition, but causality in our world has it that certain things come together. Like for instance, if the sun is going to shine, the causes that require the sunlight to reach us have to be present. If they're obscured, the sunlight will not be able to reach us. So for instance, at the moment, the causes that are obscuring sunlight reaching your face are the clouds. But that doesn't negate the fact that the sun is the cause of the light reaching our face. So no matter which way you try and slice it, the law of causality exists, yes, to account for this world. If it accounts for this world, and we recognize that the universe itself couldn't have come about by itself, and it's brought about by this eternal, self-subsistent cause, you still have to call it a cause. It's just that cause is greater.
To me, causality is one moment in time forcing the next moment in time. So everything is caused by the prior moment.
Yeah,
if you subscribe to that.
Not just one cause, but multiple causes. But I understand where you're going.
A chain of causes.
Yes.
Yeah.
But remember, that what exists is the present moment, not the past.
The problem for me is stretching the language of causality to talk about either a beginning of time or an eternal.
Okay. So how else would you describe something that has complete control of the present moment? Meaning, the present moment and all its present moment causes could not occur except through the ultimate cause. What else would you call it? Give me a word that describes that. Silence?
So you're talking
you want to call it?
Like
would you like to call it T? Let's call it T.
You're talking about a concurrent cause, which is a confusing notion, and my instinct is not to call that causality, but to call it something else.
No, sir. I'm calling it the ultimate cause. In order to get our head around the major problem of an infinite regress. The present moment has...
about ultimate cause, you're either talking about a beginning of time, or you're saying time is infinite, and there is something parallel to time that is eternal that explains, that drives what we see in each moment.
Exactly. That's it. You got it.
That's the interpretation you're using. I don't see that as causality, but I understand what you're talking about.
Okay.
You're saying
I call it the creator. I call this the creation with all its multifaceted causes, and the one that brought the causes about is the ultimate cause. Everything restricted to the present moment in time, the past and present not existing. And there's a verse, just very quickly, I know you might need to go. There's a verse in the Quran where God says, or were they created by nothing? Or did they create themselves? Or were they the creators of the universe? Neither have no certainty. For the scholars of Islam, they've understood this verse to mean that the present moment could only persist through a cause that exists outside of the universe.
So it had sounded to me earlier that you were saying the universe is continually created in the present.
Yes.
And to me, that's a more coherent perspective than the other ones we've looked at.
Yeah, more a case of not created but sustained. The creator, the cause of all things, sustains the universe from one present moment to the next.
But we still have the problem with the series of presents. We say there have been past presents.
Only if we negate the idea of an ultimate cause, then we are dependent upon the causes within the universe itself, and then that's when we have an infinite number of causes.
I keep getting confused over the exact perspective.
Okay, let me put it like this. You have dependent causes and you have independent causes. The ultimate cause is independent. The causes within the universe, where the present necessarily requires, the immediate past causes are dependent causes.
So again, it sounds to me like you're talking about something being driven not by a past moment in time, but by something contemporaneous with it.
Precisely.
Right, and that makes more sense than several of the other perspectives we've looked at.
Yeah, and that's all God is.
So,
from the Islamic perspective, when we look at the Quran, for instance, I don't know whether you've ever read the Quran. Have you ever read it?
Some of it.
So the Quran constantly is pushing Muslims and mankind in general to look at the universe.
So the issue to me
Do you know why that is? Why is it that the Quran is pushing the Muslims? We will show them our signs within the furthest horizons and also within themselves until it becomes manifest to them that this is the truth. Meaning the Quran and everything around us is the truth. It's telling us to look at the universe. You know what it reminds me of? And maybe I'll stop, I'll end with this. But it reminds me of a meme. It's a funny meme. And maybe we can end this on a light note. I'll give you the last word. But the meme was about a fish swimming through the sea, right? Swimming through the sea, all its life swimming through the sea, and asking for evidence for H2O. For us, the universe is an evidence of the fact that we have to ask these very important questions about the present moment.
So, to me, there are two issues. So first, just in terms of language, I don't love calling a contemporaneous thing a cause. Right? Then, second, I wonder about the predictive power of this interpretation. What abilities does this actually give us? If we say that there's this consistent condition that is present at every moment in time, or in every present, and that is what causes there to be a present,
or sustains it?
Yeah, I'm just not clear what predictions this makes.
You don't need predictions. What it does, I'll tell you what it...
Scientific models do make predictions. So to me, it feels weird to prefer a model that doesn't make predictions about the future.
You're conflating.
Doesn't give me utility.
You're conflating two things here. You're conflating the knowledge that we have and the scientists have of being able to make predictions based upon the sum total of their knowledge of the past, and trying to answer the obvious question of whether the universe is eternal or finite. Those two are entirely different things. I can grant you that, look, so just very quickly, I can grant you that the scientific model is something that even the Muslim scholars would affirm, because it's obvious, it's a priori. We make predictions of the future based upon the sum total of knowledge that we as a human collective have acquired over a long period of time. I can grant you that, but it still doesn't provide an answer to how the universe came about.
Yeah, I agree that an answer can be true without being necessarily useful, right? But my question is, if this comes into conflict with scientific interpretation, for example, talking about the past and future existing and still being around, then my inclination is to prefer a model that gives me some utility, that lets me make predictions or control things.
Yeah, look, utility is such an important part of any person's life.
The issue is utility and testability are connected.
Look, you don't need to test the present. That's why I asked you about the present moment in time. I can just say to you the following. It is obvious that human beings have, are, and will always be bound to the present moment in time. There is nothing that I've come across in the scientific journals that even comes close to this, to positing this idea that we'll be able to somehow break free of the present and time travel back in the past and create a grandfather's paradox. There's absolutely nothing. I mean, it's wonderful in movies. It's wonderful in movies, but we don't go by movies. We go by what we know to be obvious, the present moment in time. That's all so my point here is, I'm not asking you to make a paradigm leap outside of the obvious. I'm keeping you to that which all human beings agree to, and I've used that to demonstrate that the universe, number one, doesn't have a beginning. It's not infinite, it has a beginning. And that the only way around the idea of an infinite regress is to posit a cause outside of the universe that exists in the present.
So you're asserting the universe does have a beginning? Yes. And that time has a beginning?
For this world, yes.
Well,
not in general. Remember, we said that.
So that was my understanding, that your position is time does not have a beginning.
Yeah, because remember, time is relative, right?
Yeah. Time does not have a beginning. The universe has a beginning, and there's an infinite regress of present moments.
Yes. So the beginning of this. So the beginning of this world, we can arbitrarily say at the beginning of this world, t equals 1. Why? Because it's a utilitarian way of being able to make sense of our world. Does that make sense?
I still don't understand your perspective in terms of the explanatory power of this.
The explanatory power is that everything I've given you is based in the present moment. And that's something that is intuitive, it's obviously known.
Yeah.
Okay, anyway, look.
To me, it's not. I mean, I obviously believe of things that are true at any moment in time, right? That have been true throughout time. I believe in that. But the exact role that you're attributing to it, the idea of it solving this paradox of infinite regression, that's what I'm not clear of.
No worries,
I
no
don't
worries.
see the paradox resolution.
That's okay. We've had a good conversation. I'm hoping that maybe I've prompted you down that journey. I was on that journey myself.
Ideas.
But listen, what's your name?
Eric.
Eric Hamza. Nice to meet you. Thanks for your time, my friend. All right, all the best.